and welcome to Coach Quip, episode 154. I'm Coach Chris.
I'm Coach Robyn.
Today we are talking about sleep strategies before a big race or training session. And I just rolled my eyes because I just had a really horrible example that sort of sparked this episode. I think it's very common for people to have sleep troubles before the night before a race, and it's certainly something that I talk about with my athletes.
Absolutely. I think it's less likely that you will have, people are surprised when they have a good night of sleep.
Yeah. So I had a recent race, and I tried to go to bed early for me, which was trying to be in bed by 10 o'clock. And that, for me, on a race night is even pretty early. 10:30 rolled around, and I was still having trouble winding down.
You're just laying there?
Just laying there and, counting, doing my, the sleep things that can typically get me to sleep. And I finally fell asleep, but I woke up at 3:30 in the morning. And if you listen to our sleep episode, you know that is not uncommon for me. But on a race night, it feels extra bad.
Well, I feel like every minute feels like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And, I think between 3:30 and 5:30 when I had to get up, I think that I might have drifted in and out of sleep.
Yeah.
It felt like I was awake forever. And it's difficult in those moments to not let your mind spin and think about all of the horrible things that might happen in your race because you didn't get sleep.
And then you're just thinking over and over and over about, oh my gosh, now I'm down to 4 hours. Now I'm down to 3 hours. Now I'm down to 2 hours.
That is exactly what happened.
Yep.
So in this episode, we're going to go through some of the strategies that you can use if you have trouble getting to sleep or you wake up early in the night, and just sort of some general sleep strategies as well. We have covered sleep before, so we definitely recommend that you go back and check out that episode. But this is going to be a little more specific to that night before when all of that pressure is on for us to get some good rest. All right, so first up is just to remember, put this in perspective. One bad night of sleep is not going to ruin your race.
I feel like we should put that on the Saturday night before Chicago Marathon.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We'll re-message this episode. And also maybe put signs up. I'm going to put it in my athletes' training peaks.
Yep.
Because I think when you have that pressure and you feel like I need to get good rest tonight, you are setting yourself up not to get it.
Absolutely.
And so just remind yourself that while sleep is important, it's not just one single night of sleep that's going to help you feel energized on race day. And it's not going to significantly impact your performance. I mean, when I woke up, and if you follow Whoop, and it's all relative to you, my Whoop score was 17% recovery on race day.
Amazing. And
that is not good. 100 is good. It was very bad. But part of it was knowing that, okay, while this metric says, it says what I knew, you got a bad night of sleep, it's not the make or break of your performance on that day. So don't stress about falling asleep or staying asleep. And if you're not sleeping, even just resting in bed can be beneficial. But a lot of it is about your mindset.
Yeah. I tend to, and I think there's a little bit of this later on, but I have things that I can do, like read, right? And that makes me happy. So I'll just grab my phone, get on my little iBook, and then it's okay, well, at least I'm resting and I'm doing something that's taking my mind off of the spiral.
Yeah, and that's a big thing too, right? Because in that night before, if we are nervous, anxious, excited, our brain is going to start to spin and spiral. Yep. And wow, brains do amazing things at 3:30 in the morning,
and they just find that circle.
Yep. So next up would be to not panic. So, waking up in the middle of the night is common. We just want to message that over and over again here. It is super common to happen before a big day. I remember even waking up in the middle of the night. The night before, as a kid, we were going to go to Disney.
Woo, you were excited.
And I woke up at 3:30 in the morning, let's go, and then could not get back to sleep. So I was the most tired kid at Disney. But, when we're excited about something, when we're nervous about something, it means something to us. So it's okay to be awake. And if you just remind yourself, this happens, it helps you potentially get back to sleep a little bit sooner.
And I would guarantee every Olympian that just went through Paris 2024 did not sleep well the night before.
Oh, yes.
No. And we had record-setting amounts of medals and gold medals. So, perspective.
Yeah, nobody was getting a full night of sleep on those cardboard beds the night before their event.
Next up, all caps, underline bold, do not watch the clock. Don't do it.
Mm-mm.
You know, this has actually gotten easier in our bedroom setting because I don't have a clock. I only use my phone. And I have to physically move it or touch it in order for anything to happen. And then Brian's phone's somewhere. I don't even know where it is. But he has a clock, but it's such a small little setting of what I can't even see it. I would have to like physically sit up and look across him over a giant pillow and probably 2 pugs. So it's not worth it to me. So a lot of times I have no clue what time it is, which is great.
Yeah.
So do not watch the clock. Seeing the time crawl is not helpful. It's going to make you feel more anxious. Even if I get up in the middle of the night, especially before a race, I will not, I'm like, right? Do not look anywhere, especially if they're red numbers. Those seem a lot more pressing.
Yeah.
So turn the clock away, right? Resist the urge to check your phone. Just know, your alarm is set. You're good. Just hang the heck out there.
Yeah, I did do that well on the night before my race. I was really intentional about not checking the clock, and I did check to see that it was 3:30 because I was like, oh, maybe if it's close to my time to get up, I'll just get up now because I'm very awake. What I saw is I potentially had 2+ hours of rest ahead of me. That was it. It went over there and did not touch it again. So, gosh, when you said the time crawling by, you were so right. Every minute is an eternity when you are just trying to get to sleep.
Yeah, it's hard.
So in order to get to sleep or get back to sleep, you can use relaxation techniques. A couple of ones that we would potentially recommend would be first deep breathing. So I'm not sure if we've done a breathing episode, have we?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Maybe episode 156.
The power of intentional breathing, right? So part of it is to calm your nervous system. You could practice slow, deep breaths. There's all sorts of different techniques. A couple that I use from Headspace, the Headspace app, would be sort of like box breathing. So you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, and you hold the exhale. And that is just, you find a little rhythm with it. It's just enough to keep your mind busy, but not enough to keep you
stimulated.
Yes, totally stimulated, exactly. But you could also do like a 4 count in, a 6 count out. You want to make the exhale either equal to or longer than your inhale to get the most relaxation benefits. Another one that I use is progressive muscle relaxation. So this would be contracting and relaxing your muscles from your toes all the way up to the top of your head and just kind of going through your body. So it's kind of like a systems check of your body. And, honestly, you don't even have to do the contraction part. It's more about thinking about, okay, relax your feet, relax your ankles, relax your calves, and just working your way up. And it is, to me, very surprising the way in which I can physically feel that, even if I'm not touching it. If I think about, okay, relax your legs, right? Your whole lower body should be relaxed. And I can actually feel myself sinking into the bed.
Yeah.
So it does some really cool mental tricks for you to be a little bit more relaxed and at ease. And again, it's just something to think about. But, oftentimes I fall asleep by my waist. And that's awesome. That's best case scenario. The third part of this would be counting. And so a relaxation technique would be picking a high number because you don't want to get to 1. That would be devastating.
Have you ever gotten to 1?
I have gotten to 1 from a 100 count. And now, on the app, on Headspace, they recommend 10,000. And I'm like,
what?
Andy Puttycomb, that is a little bit much because then you're like 9,999. Like to go through that. It's just like,
if you get just 1 off 10,000.
Oh, I mean, that's it.
Good morning.
I'm done. Also, I feel like that would take forever, but our mind likes to wander and worry in the middle of the night, and this is just something your mind will inevitably wander because it's dark. Hopefully you're closing your eyes and you're just relaxing as you're doing this countdown. But the technique is so I'm counting down and I get to 77, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking about transition and what happens if I forget my shoes or something. Yeah. And then I can go, come back to the last number that I remember and then just start again. So it's sort of like, I see you thought, and I'm coming back to this project that I have right now of slowly counting down from 1,000.
I do a grounding one. I feel like I've told you about this one once. And you can do it honestly while you're awake, and I'm not super anxious when I'm awake. I'm definitely anxious about falling asleep and staying asleep. I have a lot of anxiety about sleep, which is why I don't sleep.
Yep.
But it works really well for me because it allows me to anchor myself exactly where I am and also make kind of my bed or wherever I'm sleeping a safe space. So it goes by senses. So it's 5 things that I could see. I don't open my eyes for it though. I just go by what I remember. And then 4 things that I can touch, which is really great if there's a pug near me, because then it's like I, get a little pet in, and then it's 3 things that I hear, and I already usually have a sound machine and a fan on, so I just have to find a third noise.
Snoring pug.
Yeah, or like a faint siren or whatever that is, or the wind, and then it's 2 things that I smell and 1 thing that I taste. So, which is always like middle of the night breath, right? But it really does help me center where I am, and I don't then view me laying there with quite as much fraught, and it's more like, oh, this is really comfy, or I'll like, a lot of times the feel, I'll try to choose like soft instead of like something feeling cold and hard. I'll think about something that feels soft and fuzzy, like the blanket that I use on top of the comforter, right? Yeah,
I love that, because that's something that you do regularly that then provides some continuity on race day. So when you do have this thing, you have this routine that you do that's very familiar and comforting, and that bleeds over then into that anxiety, to stop that anxiety that's different on the night before a race.
Yeah. Last, get the heck out of bed if needed. For real, before we opened Edge, and I knew we were going to at some point be losing like Primo Healthcare, so I did all of my appointments, and I ended up doing sleep therapy for 6 months. And it was really, really helpful. And this was one of the biggest takeaways of like, if it's not working for you, get out of there. Because what happens, and what happened to me, is I learned some pretty poor sleep habits when I was in grad school because I was very anxious. I had a lot of death in my family. I didn't like living alone. I hate living alone. I do not like the dark. I'm very, very scared of the dark. And so I learned to just not sleep. And that carried all the way over well into my 30s. And so this was one of the biggest thing that my cognitive behavioral psych was like, get out of bed, break where you are, because you're just going to keep associating that, especially if it's like really not going well, and you're just going to continue the loop. So general rule is if you've been awake for more than 15 to 20 minutes, it's better to just get out of bed and do something relaxing in low light. So like read a book, not on your screen. I'm looking at me because I'll do that with the blue light filter on. Or listening to soothing music or a podcast or even Headspace. I know the stories. There are a lot of people that really love the stories. And return to bed only if you feel sleepy. Or if you do get tie-tie, like just hang out and sleep there, right? Like we will regularly get out of bed and go and sleep on our couch, and I'll find Brian there like randomly in the morning because he had to get out of bed and relocate, and that's kind of normal. But for real, when you get out, keep the lights dim, right? Overhead lights really do simulate what's happening outside. So, like the side table lights are always better. Anything that's not overhead, and keep it dim. Try to avoid, your phone, a screen, blue lights. We really can't control them at this point. On your phone and iPad, maybe a little bit more than on your television, but it's really going to start to try to wake you up, right? We know that it's going to mess up your melatonin production. It's going to mess up how you are regulating your sleep, and ultimately try to make you awake when you are trying, in fact, to do the opposite. Avoid activities, too, that take a lot of mental effort. So don't go and start working on the puzzle, right? Or read an exciting book. This was a big moment for me. I realized, because you know me, I love to read, and I had no delineation of when I would read my good things that I would like nerd out on. I would go to bed with a highlighter and a pen on my side table, and I'd be reading, trying to either fall back asleep or go to sleep. Brian's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Taking notes." Like, that is not the right time to read that type of book. So now it's like short stories and like $3.99 books that I buy, that are not that great, that are boring and put me to sleep. Right. So that's what you want. Don't make your to-do list. Also not a great thing to do, right? Don't be double checking your transition list. They're set, right? Put it down. All of those things are going to help you be a little too active, or make you be a little too active, and is not going to help you, in fact, fall back asleep.
Yeah. You know, the one thing about that is if you wake up because you have a to-do list circling in your mind, then offload that, right? Like,
yes.
if you wake up with a brilliant idea, or you wake up like, I cannot forget to grab my passport, right? Write that down, then go back to sleep.
Yep.
Like, but yes, you definitely don't want to be like searching your calendar and planning your,
No.
you know, that's not the time.
That's a great point, though. Writing your things out, right? If you have a fear, write it down. You're done, right? It does help to put pen to paper. Just a little bit. Don't be journaling.
Yeah. Okay, so those are some things that you can do if you wake up in the middle of the night or you're having a hard time getting to sleep on that night before race night. But, you know, just in general, we're just going to touch quickly on a couple of sleep things just as a reminder. And again, you can take a deep dive in the past episode on sleep. But first off is just to rest well in that race week. You know, there's not really a thing as banking sleep. And a lot of people are like, oh, I sleep in on the weekends because I want to. It
doesn't work. It just messes you up, people.
Yeah, you know, it feels good in the moment perhaps, but in the big picture, I don't think it's doing exactly what folks think that it is. So the taper period before your race is designed to have you rest and recover and show up on race day feeling good. It's very common, again, to have that difficulty sleeping in race week. So I always tell my athletes it's really 2 nights before, 3 nights before. So if on Thursday and Friday night you can get that good sleep and you know Saturday night you're going to be a mess, like you are feeling a little bit better about going into that race situation knowing that you've had some good rest leading up to it.
Listen, nothing makes Coach Robyn crazier than when big events are put on Thursday and Friday at night before marathon.
Right.
My head explodes because those are, to your point, those are the nights that we care that people are unwinding, getting their sleep, getting their feet up. I know that marathon makes people hella excited. I get it. That is not the time to do it. Save it for Marathon Sunday. Next up is establishing a pre-race sleep routine. I love writing this out because then you just follow it along, right? So create a wind-down ritual. About an hour before bed, engage in a calming activity like stretching or reading or meditation to signal your body that it's time to sleep. For me, I shower every night before bed, no matter what, and I make myself cold. Like after. I mean, I cannot take a cold shower. That would be stupid. I mean, it's really good for you. I just personally hate it, but it's a great way for me to kind of stand there wet and like bring my body temp down, and it's the first cue. And avoiding screens. So again, we talked about it already, but minimizing exposure to blue light from phones, tablets, especially TVs where you can't regulate as well. 30 to 60 minutes before bed, primo.
Yeah. And that pre-race routine or pre-sleep routine is something that you can practice before your long runs.
Yeah, especially the peak ones that are coming up.
Exactly. So this is a great time to integrate that and then to get your body and your mind used to this sort of priming for sleep. Next up would be to optimize your sleep environment. We went in depth on this in our sleep episode, but just the high level stuff, keep it cool, use a sleep mask, white noise if you need to.
I'm checking all these boxes.
Yeah. Oh, the sleep mask is the one thing I asked for my birthday this year. I just want a great sleep mask.
Just silk. They're so cheap.
Yeah, well, I'm a cheap date.
Okay.
my wife will have a very interesting time.
Tune in.
But yeah, optimize that sleep environment. You want to create your little sleep cave. And, you know, a lot of times when we travel for races, you don't have those same comforts. So,
I bring my own fan. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but that's a great tip. So
bring it.
The things that you can do is, you know, if you're always using the Headspace app, which, like, this is not sponsored by Headspace. I'm just a lifetime member. Have been using it for a very long time. You know, that travels with me. And so I can turn on that story and there's continuity there. But controlling the temperature, having the sleep mask, having the white noise, all of that is good.
Nutrition and hydration. This is stuff that you all can practice day in and day out. So, not surprising, avoid heavy meals before bed, right? Try to have your last meal 2 to 3 hours before you go to sleep. I like to eat and then go on a 10-minute walk right away. Ooh. That just helps digestion, helps me get the dogs to go to the bathroom. Everybody's happy. Stay hydrated, but limit your water intake right before bed. I tend to try to get about 2/3, 3/4 of my total day's worth of fluids by like 3-4 p.m. so I can start to taper it off. Yeah. And of course we know this, but limit your sugary foods, your caffeine and alcohol in the late evening, afternoon, early evening. It will disrupt, we know this, it's going to disrupt your sleep patterns, like whether you want to or not. as much as I love red wine, as much as the next person, it messes with your sleep pattern. It definitely messes with your body temperature, and it dehydrates you. So maybe skip that the night before the race.
Save it, yeah.
Save it for after.
Save it for the celebration after.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then invite me.
Yeah. And finally, redirect your focus. So if you are having a hard time or you're spinning in your mind, focus on what you can control, right? You can remind yourself, particularly the night before a race, the training is done, the work is done. As we like to say, the hay is in the barn. And there's nothing that you are going to do between midnight the night before the race and waking up that's going to help you on race day. So focus on what you can control, and that helps to shift your mind into a more positive state. And a lot of this is about your mindset. If you're worrying, you're going to make yourself more anxious. You're going to have a harder time sleeping. If you're a little less attached to it and just say this is what it is, you might bore yourself back to sleep.
Keep counting. All right, we want to hear, did this help? Right? Did you fall asleep faster? Did you figure out a way to get a routine together that made you feel more in control of, before your race, which we know is very elusive. So hit us up. Let us know.
Check out episode 113 on sleep. And if we missed anything, if you have a secret technique, let us know as well. We will catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Coach Quip. Original music performed by Mend. Follow us online on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Edge Athlete Lounge. Our podcast lives in the blog section of our website. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and you can check out the show notes for additional ways to contact us. Ready, set, onward we go.